Okay, we're back. So I got some questions on other social media platforms, and I figured that I would sort of answer them all in one post, and then just let everybody know where to find them. Okay, so here we go again. The weird thing. Okay, closest near-death experience. Okay, I'm fairly certain that the person who asked me that question knows the answer to it already, um, and just wants to hear me tell this story because they find it very interesting. So, and I would think that most of the people on Fido know this too, but um, I had a bit of a heart problem last year. Um, I was not feeling so well around Thanksgiving, and they thought I had pericarditis. Like every time I would lay down, I'd start to feel really, really funny, like my heart would start to palpitate, and my heart rate would go down. But the thing is, I've always had a really low resting heart rate. I've always been kind of bradycardic. My resting heart rate would be sometimes 45, sometimes 50, but that was pretty normal for me. But all of a sudden, I started feeling really bad, and then about 2 weeks after that, I came home from a work consultation with my partner because I was helping him out when he had neck surgery, and we came home, and I sat down to have lunch, and I told him that my vision was starting to tunnel, and I had no idea why, and then I blacked out. And I thought, well, maybe I'm dehydrated, maybe something weird's going on. So I tried to walk up the stairs to get a glass of water and blacked out again. And that happened about 5 or 6 more times. I'd kind of fall over and come to pretty immediately, but I'd have no recollection of how it happened. So my partner was smart enough at that point to, haul me into the car and take me to the ER, and I blacked out as soon as we got there again. So ERs being ERs, it took them a couple of hours to see me, but once they did, they really couldn't find anything wrong with me, but they decided they wanted to keep me there overnight in case anything else happened, because they couldn't figure out why I was blacking out, and they didn't want me to, leave the hospital and black out again. In the middle of the night, the nurse kept coming to check on me because my heart rate would drop into the 30s, and she was like, are you okay? And I didn't feel great, but it wasn't anything beyond sort of the normal like fatigue that I have from my RA, so I didn't really think a lot of it. And then the next morning, the cardiologist and the electrophysiologist came in to see me, and they laid me on my back. And after I was on my back for about a minute and a half, my heart rate went down to 20. So yeah, it wasn't pumping the way it was supposed to. Basically, what happened was that the electrical signal stopped making it from the top chamber of my heart to the bottom, and they told me pretty much at that moment that I needed a pacemaker. So they got my partner on the phone, and they were like, hey, we're going to do temporary surgery tonight, and then we'll give her a permanent pacemaker later this week. And so I was shocked. Here I was 33, and I was going to need a pacemaker. And they did the temporary procedure that night. When they place a temporary pacing wire, they go through your neck. They insert it into your neck, and they, feed it down into your chest. And you are awake for the entire procedure. It is bizarre and uncomfortable and something out of a sci-fi movie, to be honest with you. But the problem was that it moved in the middle of the night, and it didn't work, and I blacked out again, and my heart rate really, really dropped. And I got pretty lucky because I was in the ICU, and they had a really close eye on me, so they caught it relatively quickly and were able to get me to come to. But they were like, yeah, no, we need to do this surgery today. So yeah, I had pacemaker surgery, and I went home from the hospital the next day with a brand new ticker, basically. I've got about 11 years worth of battery life left, and then we'll have to do it all again. But, I'm grateful to be here. I'm happy for every day that my heart beats at 60 beats per minute, and science is pretty amazing, right? Favorite video game? Oh, man. I feel like that's a really mean thing to ask because there's just like there like the span of what one can enjoy in that particular medium is just so broad. But if you made me nail it down, um, it would generally be the Metal Gear Solid series. Like, that's just, I love a good story and I love crazy, and Hideo Kojima provides both in excess. Out of that, if you made me sort of narrow down, okay, which one? Oddly enough, though, I've never actually played through it myself. Probably the third one, Snake Eater. It's set during the Cold War, and it's got a really, really interesting vibe to it. A really, really cool story, great music, which will win me over any time. And it's just a great game all around. In terms of things that I've played, it would be the fifth one, The Phantom Pain. It is unfortunately rather poorly edited and not really finished in a lot of ways, but the gameplay is pretty phenomenal. The things that you can do, the way you can manipulate it, the different ways you can play it are really interesting. I played through it doing a no-kill run. I used tranquilizers for everything, and and also some creative ways of killing bosses, like dropping a supply drop on their head from a helicopter because didn't want to kill them, just wanted to knock them out. So yeah, just a lot of you can really make the game what you want it to be, and that's kind of interesting to me, that they don't sort of fence you in very much. So yeah, I really like that series. It always brings me sort of this odd bit of comfort because my partner and I met the year that the third one came out, and I watched him play through it for the first time in my dorm at Northeastern. So brings back a lot of happy memories. All right. Best memory of the Folger. Okay, so clearly someone from my old job asked this. For those of you who don't know what that is, the Folger Shakespeare Library is an early modern library in Washington, D.C. We have 19 original Shakespeare First folios, so it's kind of it's often referred to as Shakespeare's American Home. It's an amazing library. It is one of the most fascinating jobs I have ever had. I was there for about 6 years. I was the associate production editor for their journal, Shakespeare Quarterly, and I was also the editorial assistant on the Folger editions of Shakespeare's plays, edited by Paul Werstein and Dr. Barbara Mowat, who Barbara Mowat was my dear friend and dear mentor. Those editions are incidentally the most popular used in American high schools. So if you studied Shakespeare in high school, there's a pretty good chance that you used a Folger edition. The library was amazing. I loved the people I worked with. I loved what I did. I loved meeting the scholars. I loved pretty much everything about the job. It was a really spectacular experience. Probably my favorite memory of it, though. We used to have a lot of Shakespearean actors and Shakespearean scholars come to the library fairly frequently, and they would go down into the vault, which is where we kept the rare materials during tours and things like that, and get to see, some of the first folios, or maybe Queen Elizabeth I's personal Bible, stuff like that. And I was down in the stacks one day doing some research for an edition of SQ. I was fact-checking an article, and I was standing near the elevator, where the elevator down to the vault, and there's this bell that rings when it's coming up. So I heard the bell ring, and I sort of just shifted myself to the side, and I heard someone say, "Excuse me," and I looked, and literally standing about a foot away from me was Patrick Stewart. Excuse me, Sir Patrick Stewart. And that was sort of a incredibly bizarre moment for me, just as a dear fan of his, not only in his movies but as a Shakespearean actor. His Claudius is one of my favorite Hamlet performances, so that was a really cool moment, just to be able to meet him and to have a second to say hi to him. That was super cool. What, not who, always makes you feel better? Aside from coffee. And yes, this is decaf for those of you who saw yesterday's edition of this. Um, what always makes me feel better? Singing, definitely singing. Writing too. I write every day. I've been doing a writing project since the beginning of 2016 where I write a poem every day and post it to my Tumblr. I never thought it would go on this long. It was a New Year's resolution in 2016, and I intended to do it for just that year, but I found it sort of an interesting way to journal my life and to sort of watch what was going on with me and see the trends in my life, in my behavior, in my thoughts. It was really fascinating, so I just kept it up. But in terms of what always makes me feel better, singing. It really does. It fuels me. It drives me. I love music. There's pretty much not a moment of the day where I'm not trying to listen to music. When I go in to open the shop by myself in the morning, that is one of my favorite pleasures, is just putting on my playlist and doing all the stuff I have to do, getting out the cutting boards, getting out the knives, sharpening the slicer, getting all the cheese out, getting things ready to go for the day, and just throwing on some music and singing. It makes me so content and so happy. And over my life, I've done a lot of gigs. I've been in a lot of choirs. I've had the opportunity to sing in some really, really cool places and for some really, 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 really cool people. I got to sing for the Russian ambassador once, which was really, really, really awesome. I got to sing Carmina Burana on stage with DC Choral Arts at the Kennedy Center in DC, which was just one of the most powerful experiences of my life. Just that opening chorus of O Fortuna in that opera house was, I can't even describe that feeling. I can't. It was a spiritual experience. It really, really was. So yeah, I love yoga, I love writing, I love a lot of things, but singing is literally the thing that's been with me the longest. It's always been there for me. So, yeah. Favorite kind of cheese? Okay, again, people who clearly know what I do for a living. That's a very difficult question because I like a lot of different cheeses for a lot of different things. In terms of if I want to have something sort of semi-soft, or I guess semi-firm is more accurate. I really like this goat Gouda that we have at work. I'm not a goat cheese person, oddly enough. Like I don't love fresh goat cheese. That's not what I'm gonna pick out if I want to eat something. But I really, really like this goat Gouda because it has that Gouda-y flavor, but it's got that kind of sweet tang at the end that goat cheese has, and it's very pleasant to eat. It goes well with a lot of things. I was eating it while I was smoking a cigar in Chincoteague, and that was surprisingly delicious. If you want like really, really hard stuff, I love an aged Gouda. I really do. Like a 2-year Gouda. Ooh, got those little crunchy tyrosine crystals in it. Oh, so yummy, so yummy. I love that. Soft stuff like brie is great, but if you're ever somewhere and you find La Tour, get yourself a piece of it. It's so good. It is fat, kind of weird because it's cow, sheep, and goat's milk. It's all three, hence the name La Tour. And it's triple cream, so it's really high fat content, and so it's very, very soft, very, very spreadable, even more so than brie. And it is rich and delicious, and because of that goat's milk in it, has that slight tang on the end, but not that very grassy goaty flavor. So I really, really like that. That's one of my favorites I've discovered since working at Cheese Teague. I also really like recently this cloth-bound cheddar that we got in from Missouri, called Florey's Truckle. And cloth-bound cheddars are wrapped in cloth and then soaked with lard to kind of form the rind on them. And it's a really, really nice cheddar that has this sort of grassy quality at the end, on the back end of it, that I find really, really pleasant. So Still has that cheddary vibe, but just not completely so, I guess, mouth-coatingly rich. And I really enjoy that. But yeah, there are a lot of cheeses that I like. So usually it's more so a question of what am I going to be using it for? What am I going to be using it for? In my everyday life, I use feta probably more than anything. I just use it to use it on my eggs in the morning. I love to put it with beans and rice and a bunch of salsa. Like it's a really good cheese for a little bit of texture, a little bit of salt. So definitely. Again, people who clearly know me really well, favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Well, so if you're ever at my house in my basement, the first thing you'll see when you go down the stairs is a giant Terminator poster. So yeah, this is clearly a subject I am well versed in. But there's like a real problem with me in picking my favorite Arnold movie because I like them for such vastly different reasons. But if I had to nail this down, if I really, really had to narrow it down, it's probably between Commando, Predator, and T2. T2 is one of those movies that I could watch over and over and over again and seriously never be bored of. I don't know. I think it's a great film start to finish. It's really, really entertaining. Commando is just off the deep end. It's if you like action movies and you like ridiculous one-liners, it is your film. It is great. And Predator for a lot of the same reasons, a little bit more dramatic, but still kind of just this interesting, very little sci-fi vibe there. But yeah, definitely. I don't know. Most days, Commando would kind of win over just because of how ridiculous it is, and how I can't really walk away from it without feeling a little bit better. Why do you love Pittsburgh so much? Wow. That seems like a rather pointed question. Yes, I am from the Steel City. I lived there for 18 years before I moved to Boston for college, and then I moved here to Arlington in 2008. So yeah, it's kind of weird to think that we've been here for 11 years now. It's an oddly transient place to live because there's a lot of military families, a lot of government workers, a lot of people coming in and out. So I found it a little bit hard to get grounded here, and that's one of the big things that I miss about Pittsburgh is that the people who live there have been entrenched there for a long time. So there's a lot of businesses that have been around for a long time, a lot of really sort of solid foundation that is there, and I love that. I do. I love that when I go home and I go to the Strip District, I still know people there. Like, I still see people that I used to go see when I was a kid. Particularly at like the fish markets and the Italian grocery there. Like, these are people that I've known since I was a little tiny kid going shopping with my parents after church on the weekends. But I love it. It's a beautiful city that has transformed itself. People used to think of it as this really dirty place because of all the coal and all the steel mills, and it's transformed in almost to a healthcare mecca, oddly enough. But it has such a strong sense of personality. The people who live there are so just, they're friendly and they care about their city. They really care about their city. They love their sports teams, right? Steeler Nation is everywhere. And that was kind of one of the cool things I found about moving here and even to Boston. I could still find Pittsburgh fans everywhere. And that was really cool, being able to be so far away from home and see somebody with a big black and gold sticker on their car, and it's an instant conversation starter. You start talking about being downtown or in Slippery, and I'll try not to let the Pittsburghese come out. It is an abrasive dialect, and I have worked a lot of my life to sound to sound a little less abrasive. um, but yeah, there are a lot of things I love about Pittsburgh. And I know that a large part of that is because it's home, because my family's there. Most of my family still lives there, so going there means seeing a lot of people that I really care about, and that really goes a long way for me. Home is where your heart is, as they say, and my heart is with a lot of those people. So it's it's my city. It always will be. There's no place like it, and if you ever go there and you are ever traveling there and you want to know dumb facts about Pittsburgh, or you want to know really good places to go, I am a treasure trove of this information, and I will talk to you about it for way too long. So yeah, please do feel free to ask. I'm super excited about the city and love sharing it with people. So yeah, that's all I have for now. This is really, really fun. I'm really enjoying sort of thinking about this stuff and answering your questions and letting you in on my odd little world. As you can tell, I've had a sort of a bizarre career path and a lot of sort of unique experiences in terms of what I've chosen to do with my life and my time. And I know that a lot of that is to do with the fact that, I got really sick last year and I didn't work for 10 months. So, sort of refiguring out what my life is now and what I want to do with it now and what I have the capacity to do with it now while I'm still working toward remission for my RA. It's a challenge. Every day is very different. Some days I wake up and I feel great. Some days I wake up and I feel pretty bad. So it's maneuvering that. It's adapting. It's pivoting, and it's challenging. But I'm ready to take it on. And you only get one go around, so might as well make it as good as you can. All right, keep them coming. I'll talk to you again soon.